the Canaanite gods.
Who?
You'd think that at first, but have you ever heard names like Baal, Moloch, or Dagon? Well, this is where those names come from. Those are names of Canaanite deities. And in this video, we will recount the story of the Canaanite pantheon and analyze their powers, all in hopes of answering what is quite possibly the most important question in human history. But can they beat Goku though? However, before we do the power scaling thing, let's get acquainted with these gods. Allow me to introduce them to you. First and foremost, we have El, king of the Canaanite gods. Next is Baal, the strongest god in the Canaanite pantheon. Then there's Moot, the god of death. Then we have Kotar Wakasis, god of crafting. Next, Anat, sister of Baal. Then Asherah, the wife of El. Next is Shapsh, the goddess of the sun. Then we have Dagon, the father of Baal. Next, Yam, a dragon. Then we have Moloch, and finally, Rapiu, the king of eternity. Now, these are the names of the gods, but don't get too excited, because turns out not much about Canaanite mythology survived until this day. We know next to nothing about most of these guys. And also, these are not all of the Canaanite gods. These are just the ones I thought were relevant for this video. Oh, and by the way, I don't know how to pronounce any of these names, but no one cares. And if you do, guess what?
Kamehame!
No one cares that you care. Care, nerd? Alright, now that you are familiar with the names of these gods, allow me to tell you their story. In the beginning, no, before the beginning, there was only wind and darkness. Neither was sapient, neither could think. Then, without reason, the wind fell in love with the darkness, and they became one. Their union created desire, the first concept, and the driving force behind all things. This was the beginning. And now, since there was a beginning, by necessity, there had to be an end. And so was born Moot. Then the god Moot freaking exploded, releasing light, which was the god El. The god El then creates the rest of the gods, the universe, the Canaanite heaven, and the earth. El then spawns Yam, a seven-headed dragon of tremendous power. And then El appoints Yam as the new ruler of the gods. The god Baal then decides to kill Yam and take his place, so the smith god Kotar Wakasis creates two weapons for Baal, and with these weapons, Baal kills Yam. Then, Moot shows up. And I know what you're thinking, didn't you say Moot exploded? Yeah, I did. But I didn't say he died. So Moot shows up and kills Baal. Why? It is not clear. The little Canaanite mythology that survive until this day survive in fragments. There are a lot of holes in the few stories that we have. But anyways, Moot shows up and kills Baal. Then Anat, the sister of Baal, she kills Moot and Baal comes back to life. Then Moot shows up again. Didn't you say he was killed? Yeah, I did. But I didn't say he couldn't come back. So Moot shows up and challenges Baal to... But then Baal just beats the crap out of Moot. So Moot gives up and Baal finally gets to sit on his throne and rule as the new king of the gods. Alright, now let's talk about punching Goku. So how powerful are the Canaanite gods? Let's first establish some base ground. The Canaanite gods are described as having wings and horns, but regarding their power, the Canaanite gods were believed to be the literal stars in the night sky. However, it is specifically stated that there are 1,000 gods. The number no doubt metaphorical, but since we are trying to establish a baseline here, at minimum, the Canaanite pantheon is comprised of only 1,000 gods, and every single one of them is, at minimum, as powerful as a star. Unfortunately, this is about as good as it gets for the average Canaanite god. Based on the little mythology that survived until this day, the Canaanite gods do not seem to share any general abilities. There is one story where the goddess Anat transforms someone into a bird. If that is enough for you to believe that all of the Canaanite gods have transmutation powers, then there you go. But since we only have one example of transmutation, to me, this means that, at best, the goddess Anat alone has the power to transform you into a bird, and that's it. Okay, now we can power scale all the gods I introduced earlier in the video. First, Shapsh. As the goddess of the sun, Shap's minimum is star level, but since her light is said to illuminate all of the gods, and there is at least 1000 of them, then that means that the light of Shap's outshines 1000 stars. This does not mean she is more powerful than 1000 stars, but it does mean she has more power than just the regular sun. Next is the smith god Kotar Wakasis. His true strength comes from the fact that he can create weapons powerful enough to kill Yam. Speaking of Yam, he is also called other names like Nahar, Tanin, or Lotan. He is said to be a dragon and he is described as having 7 heads. Also, he is associated with water, so it would not be incorrect to imagine him as a water dragon. And he can talk. He is not a mindless monster. As for his powers, Yam was created to rule over the Canaanite gods. He is more powerful than almost all of them. The Canaanite gods fear him. Even Baal was afraid of him. Before he got his weapons, of course. Since the gods are meant to be the stars, by Yam being more powerful than all of them, it could be argued that Yam has enough power to destroy 1000 stars. Moving on, next is Moot. Just like Yam, Moot scales above almost all of the gods in Canaanite heaven. Even Baal respects his power. And this is after Baal kills Yam. Not to mention that, unlike Yam, who dies pretty quickly to the weapons of Baal, Moot manages to hold his ground against Baal during their second encounter. So Moot is definitely more powerful than Yam. And as the god of death, it could be argued that Moot has the power to insta-kill you, which would explain how Moot manages to kill Baal during their first encounter. But the most interesting thing about him is this. Moot is portrayed as having a voracious hunger, and inside of him are said to be all the necessary materials to make all of creation. What this means is that Moot, at minimum, has enough energy to destroy one universe. But remember, Moot is far from invincible. He has been defeated twice. Moving on, next god would be El. First of all, his appearance. El is said to have a white beard. He has eyes on the back of his head, 4 wings on his back, and 2 wings on his head. And he also has horns, because horns represent royalty and power, so that's why all the Canaanite gods have horns. Moving on to his powers, since El created the gods, the universe, and the dragon Yam, it is not unreasonable to assume that the god El has the ability to spawn things out of nothing. And since he has enough power to make the universe, the god El, at minimum, should have enough power to destroy one universe. Also, El is called the father of years. If we assume that this means the god El created time, then at minimum, and I want to stress this, at minimum, making time would mean he's really fast. This is because you cannot have speed, you cannot have movement if there is no time. If the god El was moving before there was time, then he would be really fast. And look, I know this sounds confusing and made up, but it does make sense if you think about it. However, all of this hinges on the fact that we are assuming El made time, and our only evidence for this is that he's called the father of years. That is some very weak evidence for such a claim. Lastly, for El, it is not clear how he compares against Moot. You could definitely argue El is more powerful, but since El is not outright stated to be more powerful than Moot, at minimum, they should be around equal in power. Now let's move on to a god that is definitely more powerful than these two, Baal. So, Baal has the power to manipulate the weather. He is called the Lord of the Earth, and with his voice alone, he can shake the world. On his own, meaning without his weapons, Baal is weaker than Yam, but with his weapons, Baal killed Yam in 2 hits. He also fought Moot until Moot quits because he could not kill Baal. But even more impressive, after Asherah, the wife of El, discovers that Baal has killed Yam, she goes to where El is and tells him, "Hey, Baal is now stronger than all of us." And the god El does not disagree. Baal, with his weapons, is definitively the strongest god in the pantheon. Now let's talk about his weapons. He has 2. They are said to be either axes or maces. They are called Yagrush and Aimer, and they are so amazing that they can fight for themselves. Okay, that does it for Baal. Now let's rapid fire the remaining gods because there is even less to say about them. The goddess Anat killed Moot that one time. She also threatened El once, but the god El did not take her threats seriously. And she can shake the planet. Next, Asherah, she is said to have the power to kill Yam. Moving on to Dagon, he is a complete mystery. All we know about him is that he is the father of Baal. However, since Dagon is a Canaanite god, and all of the Canaanite gods are stars, then at minimum, Dagon has to be star level. Now let's talk about Moloch. People far more educated than me have been arguing for decades on who Moloch actually is. Everyone agrees that Moloch is simply just another name used for one of the Canaanite gods. But exactly which god depends on who you ask. The most commonly accepted theory is that Moloch is just another name for the god Baal. I, however, disagree with this. In my opinion, and remember, I'm just a stinky nerd on the internet, so really, what do I know? But in my opinion, Moloch is just another name for the god El. Okay, now all that's left is Rapiu, King of Eternity. First of all, yes, that is a cool title.
Nice.
Second, no, unfortunately we don't know why he's called the King of Eternity. And third, we don't even know if he's a god. I mean, it would make sense that he is one, but even that is debatable. Okay, that about does it for this pantheon. So now, allow me to put some nice lotion on my hands, because I'd save the spiciest for last. Within Canaanite mythology, both the Egyptian and Mesopotamian gods exist, and they are part of the Canaanite pantheon. So Yam, and anyone stronger than Yam, would actually be more powerful than Mesopotamian Marduk. And in case you don't know why this is a big deal, watch my videos on the Sumerian gods, the Babylonian gods, and my video on Tiamat. Those of you who understand the strength of Marduk will agree with me when I say that if some of these gods are more powerful than Mesopotamian Marduk, then they are monsters. Absolute powerhouses. But, let's admit it, all of this relies on very flimsy logic. Anyways, conclusion time. So, how powerful are the Canaanite gods? Well, if we accept that Mesopotamian Marduk is part of the Canaanite pantheon, then some of the Canaanite gods are really strong. But if we ignore that, then the strongest god in this pantheon would only be capable of destroying a couple of universes. And since most of the Canaanite gods do not have any crazy wacky special abilities, then that would mean that the Canaanite gods, in fact, cannot beat Goku. Anyways, that's all I have. As usual, I thank you for your time. I hope you have a good day. And until next time, take care. Bye bye.